The word budget's got to go.
Yeah.
It has to go, because the question is who sets that?
Yeah.
Who is setting that? The client, and it's not the client's fault. They're not educated yet in their custom design solution.
Yeah.
So they can't set it. The designer can't set that budget yet because he doesn't know what he's designed yet.
Yeah.
And the builder can't because he's got nothing to work off.
Yeah.
So the team establishes the project spend.
My dream is to improve the residential building industry for all involved. Throughout this podcast, we're going to be chatting to all types of industry experts to make sure that builders, tradies and clients all have a fantastic experience. G'day guys, welcome back to another episode of Level Up. We're back in the shed. I'll apologise from the beginning. It is raining. We're still getting shit weather here in southeast Queensland, so we might get a little bit of rain noise throughout this one. But exciting one today, something a little bit different. We've got Aaron Wailes from GreenCoast Building Designs back here. Welcome, mate.
Thank you. Thanks for having me back.
So Aaron and I are going to do something a little bit different today because the word budget, I want to throw it out the window. I think it gets thrown around a lot in our industry. I think it's very misunderstood. So basically, we're going to just sit here and talk through what we deal with, what we manage, what we communicate, how we educate, basically everything that relates back to getting rid of the word budget.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, we talk about it every week, don't we? You and I are on the phone. We're discussing
almost daily, mate.
Daily. And I guess one of the big changes that we've experienced, and the whole industry has experienced, is the goalposts keep moving.
Yeah. Yeah,
Like,
it is impossible
Yeah.
in the current market. I don't just think here in Brisbane, like around the world from what I'm hearing, like you cannot pinpoint what something's going to cost.
Exactly. And because of that, and I think this is the aspect that we've enjoyed together, is we're looking at that and going, okay, how do we learn from it? How do we turn that around? We've had so many discussions. And when we just recap briefly, the traditional way, because we say, we both agree, let's get rid of the word budget. We don't need to use the term budget. Now, what we're not saying is that we're not respectful of a project spend. And that's what are we replacing the word budget with?
Project spend.
Project spend.
Look, the more we've been on this for a long time now, I think project spend is a lot better.
A lot better.
Aaron's got some really good thoughts around this, but like my theory is like the industry is led so much by volume builders. And so like everywhere, TV, marketing, you go to a display village and you can quite easily walk into an office, there's 20 designs on the wall, they've all got a price on the bottom of it. It's like you go in the grocery store and you can basically say, I want that one there, that's how much it is, start building.
Yeah.
And you probably get a few options you can add into that, but I think a lot of it stems from that. But when it comes to, like, we literally have never built, like you've never designed, I've never built the same house twice.
No. Well, even on that point, like the traditional, let's call it your project build, we're seeing recently in the media that they can't control their costs.
Yeah.
They're emailing people saying you have to pay more.
Yeah.
That's creating a huge discussion in the industry, and it all comes back to this word budget, about how much someone's wanting to spend. But when we think about the term budget, like obviously people are going to say you can't throw out the term budget. That's going to be the first thing that a lot of traditionalists will say. But when we think about the word budget, we create a household budget or a budget for a car, and it's based off known costs.
You know, when you go to buy a car, you know you want a certain brand, a certain type, you want a certain extras.
Yep.
Like it's very simple. But even in, like, that's actually a good example, but even if you don't know the extras you want, extras on a car might be a dozen things if you're lucky.
Exactly, yeah, because a car comes with a recommended retail price.
Yeah.
So you go in, you buy your car, and there it is, and then your wheels or whatever accessories you want to put on it will come at a set cost.
Yeah.
And what we're dealing with in the industry now is that dealer rocking up, when you go to pick it up, the dealer turning around and saying, no, sorry, that's 20% more now because shipping costs went up yesterday and now this is where we arrive.
Yeah.
And so that's put a huge pressure on builders. It's put huge pressure on supply chains. So from our point of view, from a design point of view, and we work with yourself in a very collaborative manner, we always promote that, but we keep getting people coming along being told to set a budget.
Yeah.
And so when someone's told you have to set a budget, if they're not educated in how to set a project spend,
I think
we start off wrong.
I think the other really important part of your and so like we've got this pack process, we do it very well with you, and for probably a good 3 or 4 years now, we've had incredible, well, actually probably 5, 6 years, and then the last 12 months it sort of started to not work as well, but we would develop project sheets based off past projects, and they would give us a square meterage rate that we could use to start a design process.
Yep.
But the way the industry's gone, availability, price increases, inflation, it is impossible to do that. Like we meet someone, we have an inquiry, we start a design process. By the time we even get to the preliminary design, that could be a month, 2 months, 3 months period. The cost has gone up another 5, 7, 8, 10%. But I think like people love the word budget, and it amazes me. Like, and again, I'm just growing, I'm learning. Like you and I have a lot of conversations where we're always trying to improve what we do. People come up with a figure, which they call a budget, and that figure is generally led by the amount of money they have in the bank, the amount of money that their wages allow them to borrow, the equity in their home, the valuation of their current home. Mm-hmm. And so they come up with a figure, which they then call a budget. And it's funny because that figure could be 200,000 or it could be $1 million, but they feel that for that figure, they're going to get this amount of room.
And everything they want.
Yeah, and everything they want. But there's no, it's like I love the shopping trolley analogy. Like you can go to the shopping, get groceries, 2, 3, 10 grocery trolleys full of groceries, but they're all different value. Mm. And because you could load that trolley with 1,000 different items.
That's right. So the reason we're throwing out the word budget, like when we throw it out there, we get rid of the word budget, everyone's going to say, well, okay, what are you doing then? If you're not using the term budget. Now, we've agreed that let's use the term project spend, but it's how we arrive at that project spend that's a point of difference at the moment. So in a nutshell, what we're doing is we're coming along to a client, establishing the due diligence, our typical design process. We've built a designer, establishing the project parameters, we know the site conditions, etc. But now what we're really promoting is that as a designer and a builder, we don't have the right to tell a client what they should or shouldn't see value in.
Yeah.
It's our role to educate a client on what it will cost to produce, to design, to construct their design brief. And the big challenge here for everyone in the industry is we're not talking about extremes here. We're not coming in with a beer budget and wanting champagne. We're not talking about extremes. Yeah. But what we're saying is that it's our responsibility as a designer and a builder to say to the client, this is everything you're requesting. This is the best use of site, the best design practice. Here's the appropriate construction methodology.
Yeah.
And we believe, based on current project costs, what you're seeking to achieve will cost X. Now, you let us know what you see value in. So we just recently went together to a client just here in North Brisbane. Now, we explained that to them, that our goal is to determine what's best for their site. Let's extract out of the client how they want to live, their lifestyle. Let's then educate the client on how much that costs.
Yeah.
The client in then turns around and tells us what they see value in.
What's important to them.
What's important to them.
Yeah.
That then determines the project spend.
Yep.
Now, where a lot of...
And direction.
Yeah. And where a lot of designers will probably go, yeah, but how do we establish a fee for that? How do we put a scope of works around that? Well, in simple terms, your client designer agreement is based on that first step.
Yeah. And then once you achieve that first step, then you can establish fees.
Correct. And so then as you go through that, even if you put that all into one lump sum, by educating the client that you're seeking to find out what's valuable to them, that will establish the project spend. Now, the take home from that is also clients don't want to tell us the budget.
And look, I get that one. Like and look, to use a car analogy again, like if you go to a car dealership and you tell the guy you've got 50 grand to spend, he's going to sell you a $50,000 car.
But we see that in building, don't we?
Yeah.
All of a sudden, the cost of what the client's budget miraculously is exactly what it costs.
Yeah, and the process that you and I have, and it works very successfully, is look, at the end of the day, I know what it takes to run my business. You know what it takes to run yours. I have set margins that I know I need to cover in my business.
Yeah.
And they just get applied to all my jobs.
Absolutely.
If I was to just start ramping things up and charging too much, like I'm not going to continue to build my reputation. Like, so it's, you've got to be an honest operator in this industry, because if you're not, you get shot down pretty quickly.
Absolutely.
So
but what we're getting rid of, what we find challenging and what we're aiming to help everyone listening to appreciate is when you rock up to design a custom build home and then construct a custom build home, you can't assign the monetary value to that. One, it's not designed.
You don't know what's in it.
You don't know what's in it. Two, the site conditions haven't been established. The due diligence hasn't been carried out.
You haven't like worked with the client enough to know what their expectations are.
Exactly. So you've got to build, and the project spend will go up and it will go down as that client is educated on what they see value in. And the old saying, you don't know what you don't know. So a client comes along and says, yeah, but how much will my spend be? Well, the client's investing money and professional fees in yourself and myself. So our respective businesses carry out the due diligence. We establish a scope of works. This is already a concept design, preliminary design.
Yep.
And then we're actually talking about real figures. We're talking about known conditions. We always
it's
use
not like it's very different to anything else, really, but isn't it? Because like you buy a car, you can go to the car, you see the car, you get a list of extras. You go to the grocery shop, everything's got price on it. Like, and that's the sort of place that the project or volume home fits.
Yep.
Like and like again, there's two very different clients here. Like you might have the person that wants to go to the volume builder, have a look at 20 drawings on the wall, see what the price is, grab that, not make any selections at all, sign a contract, come back when the job's finished. And that's fine. Like that, everybody's got a place. And then there's the other client that wants to have the input. They want to know exactly what's going into their home. They want to have options on everything in their home. They want to talk through the different costings, the colours, the tiles.
Absolutely.
And so, and that's pretty much the work we do. Like we're not, you don't design volume
custom.
homes.
Exactly.
And I don't build them. So it's all about education, isn't it?
That's right.
Like you need to understand
Yep.
what things cost.
Exactly. And when we have an industry where the goalposts keep getting moved forward, and we've got individual site conditions and constraints, we use the analogy of soil.
Yeah.
We go in to do a polished concrete slab and the soil is just rubbish soil, no bearing pressure. That slab is going to go through the roof in costs.
Yeah.
We don't know that when we do a design brief.
That's right.
So more...
Or when someone rings you and goes, hey, what's a ballpark?
Exactly, the old ballpark. So the point is, you don't arrive at a custom design process saying, I'm spending X.
Yeah.
We have to merge what you're wanting to spend with what you want to achieve, then cross-reference that against the deliverables of that particular site, meld them together, then have the builder through the design process.
Yeah.
The builder then can cost those. Out of that will come the project spend. Because the take home from this too is that we see so many builders and designers being held to task because a budget was set by the client and or the industry, but that budget was never properly established.
I think like an important thing with all this, Bud, is like we can still guide people. Like like what you and I have found a lot, definitely in the last 12 months, I think, like we're still doing, well, sometimes we probably try too hard to reach a figure and we put a lot of pressure on ourselves, but we've definitely found that like a lot of clients, once you do start educating them on on what it is going to cost to meet an expectation that they have in their mind from pictures they've seen or houses they've been through, a lot of people will actually make the decision to increase their project spend.
That's right.
Because the original figure, which they called a budget, was based on a completely unknown.
Exactly.
It was just
it wasn't educated.
It was pulled out of thin air. But the other side of that is if we do educate people on what it is going to cost to meet their expectation, and I think this is where some people definitely, I think a lot of people feel like they can get a drawing, they can put a price on it, and they build. But ultimately, to get the best outcome, design, products, builder, relationship, build experience, and all those types of things, generally it's going to take I believe it takes 2 to 4 rounds of design and 2 to 4 rounds of costing.
Yep.
And you're really good. Like you made me aware of this. Like, it's actually not over what someone wants to spend until you sign a contract.
Exactly. Yeah.
So this whole process is about working through, like, establishing what it is your client actually wants. What's most important to them? What things because we actually find, like, a lot of people, once we educate them, some things that they thought they really wanted or needed in a house, they're not interested in.
Absolutely.
And a lot of time that's driven by real estate agents, market trends. But when they figure out the actual cost of those items, they'd rather put that money over here.
Correct.
And do something different.
And that's why the project spend will go up and down. That's why it evolves through the design process. So I guess and many people might say, yeah, but how do you establish consultant fees, etc., on something that might go up and down? Like, how does the builder know to even invest time if there's no parameter set? Well, the simple answer to that is very early in the design process, it will depend on how good the designer is at establishing the due diligence and the concept design for the builder to look at an actual design solution that's legible and makes sense. And then we can start putting some words around that. And very early in the piece, we start to tighten down the overall parameters, so to speak. Yeah. But the other thing we often get kind of is it's insinuated, well, but what are you guys driving at? Well, I know I probably can't speak for you exactly. Well, I think I can, but we want to see the house built. People, our driver, we
want to see the house built, the client happy, them tell their friends, we get more work.
Exactly. If we can't photograph a home that's designed and built to the best potential for that project spend, we may as well not start. And that's our goal. So I know our firm, like GreenCoast Design, is certainly not a firm, and we compete with this in the same way you do. These designers come along, they'll do a set of drawings that the designer has no invested interest in seeing that house built. They've been commissioned to design, they hand it back to the client, and they say, I'll go and get someone to document that or finish it off, or the builder will look after everything else. That's not who we are. We want to be involved with clients who want to achieve the best possible outcome for their project.
I think a lot of people, and again, I believe so much that our industry is driven by volume.
It is, but it's like you mentioned it earlier in your videos, you've got expectations, and what can happen is we put these expectations on ourselves, and the industry does it, that this budget that does not relate to the site, it doesn't relate to traffic control, trucking, all of those things.
There is so much.
There's so much.
People, it's why we do what we do, and we put so much stuff out there. But like, there's so many examples. Like, obviously, like the very first cab off the rank is like you and all other building designers and architects all have different business models. My building business is a different business model to the builder down the road. Like different, different admin setups, different staff setups, different offices. Do you work from home? Do you have a commercial space? Like, there is so much that actually affects the cost of the business.
Absolutely, yeah.
Which then affects the cost of the running cost, and then the overheads and the margins that we have to charge. But it just keeps going. And then different builders will do things different ways.
Different ways, yeah.
Some builders just do all floating waffle pod slabs. I refuse to do them. I only do conventional footing and slab designs, which is more expensive, it's stronger, and it lasts longer.
Well, from a design point, you're 100% right, but from a designer's point of view, here's a point of comparison, right? Imagine driving down the road and you see a sign that says free house as long as you pay for the design fees. So you're driving down the road and someone's advertising, I'm going to build you a free home as long as you pay for the design fees. Now, no one in the world's ever seen that. But from a designer's point of view, we drive down the road, we walk past shops in town, etc., or you see building companies advertising it, free design service, 100% complimentary, free design, interior design, styling, etc. Where'd that come from? So the poor client is sitting there going, well, design's obviously free. But you and I both know that the software those designers or build firms use is the same software we use.
Yeah.
They have the same staff, the same costs, the same insurance. So the industry promotes such a distorted view about what is valuable and what is going to add value to a client's home. So when the poor old client's coming along going, I thought all of this would just be included in the contract, because we've had people say, can we borrow the money for the professional fees?
To cover all the preliminary fees.
Correct.
Yeah.
And the simple answer to that is you'll have to possibly relook at your financial position.
Yeah.
But the point being is that the industry is confusing.
Very confusing.
You have to establish those project parameters throughout the design journey. There's no such thing as a free swimming pool if you sign. Have you seen that one too? You get a free swimming pool? $25,000 worth of value thrown in.
Yeah.
And you go, well, hang on, where did that $25,000 come from?
Yeah.
So
it's all built in somewhere.
It's all built in somewhere. So from the consumer's point of view, they're trying to understand cost. But the only way they can understand cost, and they've got advertising saying it's free, the only way they can understand is if they're educated on it through the design journey. Yeah. And with that, they can connect a monetary value with what they see value in.
And the other thing is you're going to have professionals in the industry that are very good at what they do, but not running a business. And so they just tell people what they want people to hear.
Yeah.
And it's I know lots of builders that build incredible homes that get lots of opportunity. The client rings them, hey, I want you to build my house. And the builder, because they got no systems, no processes, and if they're like me in the past, I didn't value design, they just say, oh, look, go and get your design built, come see me when it's finished.
Yeah.
Because they don't see value in them getting involved, and they don't, I believe they don't value design. Because that was me for a long time.
Absolutely. And likewise, a lot of designers don't value the positive impact a builder will have through design, through that design process.
Yeah.
It really, if that connection's not there before you start cutting up the site, why do you expect the connection to be there after?
It's going to be a disaster.
It is a disaster.
But coming back to the project spend, it's like I believe we're having incredible success. Like the relationships we're building with clients, handing jobs over where clients are in tears because it's just met every expectation and they're so overwhelmed. Like they're moving into this incredible home. And one comment we get a lot now is the jobs we're building are feeling like a home before they're even finished because the design's so good.
Yeah. Bill, the client's empowered. Would you say that? I didn't mean to cut you off, but just talking to the clients we're just talking to just before today, before this podcast, as soon as the client realises that our process is going to educate them to be empowered to make a decision on what they see value in, the client's now in control.
Yeah.
What you don't hear you and I say, well, we don't say it anymore. We've had to learn.
Yeah.
That's not in budget. We don't say those words anymore.
Yeah.
We say, look, we'll educate you on the costs.
Yeah.
You can choose to spend that money.
Yeah.
Now, if a client's going to waste money, we're going to be the first to tell them.
Yeah.
If they're going to throw money at something that's unrealistic, we want to alert them to that because we want them to spend money on a far more productive outcome, basically.
And we want the best outcome, like we said before, so that we can photograph, we can use it for marketing, we can get more work out of it. But
so the take home is work your spend. Your project spend is established throughout the design journey, especially in the industry now that is COVID, with so many ups and downs on availability. And I've heard some people say, oh, you set a really good figure to start with. If that really good figure is wrong to start with by 1%, it's quite wrong by the end of the project. So I guess the lesson learned there for all of us is don't feel so much pressure to set the project spend up front. It's a guide. And you've got to understand what it is you value. Exactly. And once again, we're not talking about extremes. We're not talking about some ridiculous case where someone says, I want everything in the world for $100,000 or $1 million or whatever. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about a positive, collaborative relationship between the client who knows the designer's goal is to educate them on costs, not just spend money.
And ultimately, like our goal is to get the client the best possible product that we can for what they're wanting to spend.
Exactly. And I think, and that's it. There's so many conversations around that. And the winner at the end is everyone involved. And the testimony to that is that, I think I said that right, testimony.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. I think.
There's no wrong words here, mate.
Well, the winner to that's the client, because we're about to start a couple of projects for clients that we've already built for. Now they're building again and they're extending again. And I think there's nothing more rewarding than hearing a client come along and say, there's just no choice other than yourself to design and Duayne to build. They're excited. They're excited. They're coming back. And if we've achieved that for a client, that's a great outcome.
And ultimately, the whole idea of this podcast is that we want everyone to have that experience.
Exactly. Yeah, because it makes the industry a better place. So, a designer, we don't set a magical, because another one that gets under my skin. How does the designer know exactly what the builder's going to charge?
That's right.
How does the designer know what the subcontractors will charge the builder? What happens if that subcontractor just missed out on a couple of jobs, or he's got some expenses, or the COVID index has gone up? All of a sudden the goalpost has moved again. So it's very interesting hearing a designer or an architect state, your build will cost this much. Because I always wonder, what's the relationship between that designer and the builder?
It's never known, mate. Until the design's finished, the client's happy with it, and you put real figures on it, it's never known. And it can't, like, project spend to me is just, it's a game, like, I hate the word game changer. It's just changing the way we do things. Like it's
I think it's empowering the client, though. I
was going to say, it's definitely empowering the client.
That's
like, we're seeing the clients just so much more involved. Like they're really liking, and that they're getting educated on, like, what's the difference between aluminium windows and timber windows? What's the difference between tile floors and timber floors? Like, so that through the whole process, they can be making up their mind. Well, oh, look, I did only want to spend $400, but if for another extra 20, I can get awesome timber floors, like that's value to me. Like, I grew up with timber floors. I would love to have a house with timber floors.
Exactly, yeah.
And so they can make those decisions, and it is one of those things, because, like, I know, like, you and I do this every day, so we probably assume a lot and forget sometimes how, like, most people only build once or maybe a couple of times. So it's easier for us because we do it all the time. We're constantly pricing things where we can see the changes. But for someone that's out there that's thinking about building or renovating and trying to come up with how much they want to spend, it can be quite overwhelming, because like, you can go to a kitchen, a cabinet maker, and, like, you can spend $12,000 on a kitchen, or for the same space you can spend $200,000.
That's right.
Completely dependent on level of finish.
Well, this is where it comes back to establishing the project team, isn't it?
Yeah.
You establish your project team, so you do your due diligence on such, and then the design process will educate you on how much, one, you want to spend, but then also how much you can spend.
Yeah.
And then when we find that difference, if there is a difference, you know that the client can come away from the design journey going, I have explored the design, the detail to the best of the ability at the time, and I know the parts I can invest in and choose not to.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really good terminology for all of us designers, builders to remember. These are clients' investments.
Yeah.
So we don't want to say to a client, "Oh, that's too expensive," or "You're spending."
Well, it's not expensive. Like, it's not our call.
That's right. It's not our call.
Yeah.
If they choose to have a certain style of product, that's fine.
Yeah.
And it's our job to educate them on then how to blend that through. We use the term surprise architecture.
Yeah.
And recently on a project, we thought about redoing a window wall, didn't we, in timber, and we were going to change the detail with the pelmet and how the subseal worked with all of the drainage. But when we looked at it, there was no other repetition of that detail. So it would be, in a sense, surprise detailing.
Yeah.
And it didn't fit with any of the detailing in the home. When we explained that to the client, and it was a more affordable solution to use more of a traditional timber framed and glazed suite,
Yeah.
everyone said, yeah, that's more appropriate for this product.
Yeah.
And so the benefit there is now that those funds are going into a beautiful kitchen.
Yep.
That kitchen's going to be amazing, and what a fantastic central heart of the home. But once again, the client needed to be educated on those costs, is what you did.
And that one, on top of that, that one's, and a lot of the time this is the case, like it's a lot more than just the price.
Yes.
Like it's the long-term longevity, maintenance, does it suit the environment the house is in, all those types of things. And it's...
Well, that particular client we're talking about, we didn't start off at the project spend we're at now.
No.
That project spend has increased as that client saw more value in renovating their forever home.
It's over double.
Yeah.
So what they originally come to us and was set on spending, and this is like coming back to what we touched on in the beginning, the original budget for this project was purely set off what the real estate said the house would be worth.
Yes.
At that time.
Correct. Yep, that's right, yeah.
And so we're doing quite a bit more work than what was initially set out there.
Well, the scope's grown, but they've seen they're educated in it, and now they understand why it should grow.
Yeah, and now they've realised, because they've been so well educated, like it is a long-term home. Their kid's going to grow up there, probably go to uni there, so there's space for him to grow up. Their business is growing, so they got space to do what they need to do.
I can hear a lot of designers saying, yeah, but how do you work out your design fees if the project scope increases? And how, as a builder, do you work out your consultancy fees? That's a conversation for another day.
Yeah, that's another podcast.
A lot of intellectual property there on our side of the fence, so to speak, that we have. But
pure and simple through, well, first of all, having a fantastic process to begin with, client seeing trust in what we do, and then us asking questions and learning about them. Like you've definitely taught me a lot about this over the last few years, but what they initially thought they want, like I said, was pretty much driven by what a real estate agent had told them. And yet after us educating them on what that was going to be worth, they completely changed their priorities.
Absolutely, yeah.
And like I said, that project is now close to 2.5 times the figure that they originally gave us. And that doesn't mean that we have talked things up or we've increased that or any of that sort of thing. That purely means that client, and at the end of the day, that client had the money they're spending now back when they first met us.
That's right.
It's just that they've been educated on what things cost. They've prioritised what's valuable to them. And they've also up-specced a lot of things because they didn't know the difference between a $20,000 kitchen and a $100,000 kitchen.
Yeah. And when we explored the design, the home lends itself to a more of a traditional character style, but the client's desire is blending that with more of a modernist style, very clean, simple, straight lines. And so once that confidence was there, it just flowed.
Yeah.
And I guess the take home too is that this doesn't just apply to big projects.
No,
the most rewarding projects can be a very simple, elegant design solution to a master bedroom.
Yeah.
And it's the same process. If the client sees value in that, that's what drives the process.
Yeah.
But the industry, has to educate them. And I see it too many times designers, builders, they're not interested in doing that because they don't want to take the time.
Yeah, and I think it's a shame because I think there's probably a lot of people out there that could have ended up with a better home than what they had because they haven't been educated, and also they've stretched what they can afford to spend, and they've either had to take things out or like a lot of the time when people come to us, they have a figure and they don't even know what's in that figure. And then like they'll fill out your design brief, they'll give you a bit of an idea, but then even from the very first meeting, so does that figure include driveway? Does your block of land need new fences? Like, is there a shed in the backyard that needs demolishing? Like, there's so many other things that also come into the overall project spend. And I think that's why project spend works so well.
Because we've got to get the industry's got to. The word budget's got to go.
Yeah,
it has to go, because the question is who sets that?
Yeah,
who is setting that? The client, and it's not the client's fault. They're not educated yet in their custom design solution.
Yeah.
So they can't set it. The designer can't set that budget yet because he doesn't know what he's designed yet.
Yeah.
And the builder can't because he's got nothing to work off.
Yeah.
So the team establishes the project spend.
Like it comes right through to even things like just the quality of finish. Like so many people, without having our process where we can educate them, because we've had a few ones like this where they might go to a project type home and they'll have in their head what the plumbing fixtures might be. And when we educate them that, like, look, those plumbing fixtures have only got a certain lifespan, they're worth this much money. Generally, they're like, far out, is that how much that is? And then when they start doing more homework, they might be someone that's really likes cooking and it's going to spend a heap of time in the kitchen. And when you educate them on the cost of the plumbing fixtures or the cost of the appliances, they might decide to reduce cost elsewhere so that they can have really good appliances that are never going to let them down, are going to allow them to grow their passion for cooking. Like there's like I've learned through this process doing with you, people really start to come out of their shell, and we really start to learn like how these people live, the hobbies they have, like how they interact with friends and family. Like we're wrapping something around their lifestyle, which happens to be a building that happens to cost money and time, and we get there through the design. Every now and then you'll and designers, builders will have it out there. They'll have heard the term, or I'm spending $1 million. I should be able to have everything I want. No, it doesn't work like that. Just because you're spending any amount of money doesn't mean that you can have everything you want. The project value or spend is irrelevant. Yeah.
Just because it doesn't mean that particular site, that particular building, the town planning approach, the structural engineering will accommodate what you want.
It's like you've said a couple of times, it doesn't matter the value. It's on all extremes. So if it could be like even someone that's spending $5 million might not get everything that they thought they were going to get.
Correct.
Because instead of spending, like your average home might have, here's an example for people. Your average volume built home, 3 bathroom, powder room, laundry, kitchen, all the plumbing fixtures in it, sinks, basins, taps, toilets, you name it, is probably worth somewhere between $2,500 and $3,500. Most of the jobs we do at a mid-level have plumbing fixtures anywhere between $9,000 and $40,000. And like people go, how can there be so much difference? It's a toilet, but like
certainly not.
It adds up. And then you go to the extreme. Like we've done one job where the plumbing fixtures were over $100,000.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter what level you're prepared to spend at. You have to be educated. And
in those examples, they didn't get everything they wanted.
Yeah.
Because there was a limit, because money was going to be spent elsewhere, because they realised the value of that particular plumbing item, whether it be a luxurious bath or whatever it is, it had to tap out It got to a point where that was enough value, and now the funds had to be diverted elsewhere. Yeah.
But again, to that person spending that amount of money, it's what they see the value in. And if they choose to spend over $100,000 in plumbing fixtures, that's good on them. So
we'll have to have a conversation another day too about how to establish a builder's scope of works and a designer's scope and the engineering, etc. When you've got a moving target. Like how do you actually combine? I know it's a conversation for another day, but we'll need to maybe share a little bit of knowledge there.
Yeah, well, mate, I think that pretty much covers what we're trying to get out there. But get rid of the project or the budget word. Project spend is a far better way of thinking about it. I guess for everyone listening out there, I'll do builders, you go homeowners. Like, what advice would you give homeowners listening to this? Where to start and how they should get more educated?
I would suggest that the best thing a homeowner can do is align themselves with good professionals. And so to do that, they have to have someone who, one, listens, creates a design brief that extracts information about them and their lifestyle, and essentially creates the project parameters and overall guide to what that client's trying to achieve. But the big take home for a client is ask your designer, your architect, to demonstrate their advice. So if someone says to you, you can't have that, demonstrate why. Now, that's not saying that every little decision has to be psychoanalyzed. That's not the point. But from a homeowner's point of view, work with professionals who are happy to collaborate and work with a good team. I don't believe there is one architect, designer, builder, engineer, or client who has all the answers.
Yeah.
As a team,
it's a process.
As a process, so trust the process.
Yeah.
And if you can see that process has delivered successful outcomes, you won't educate yourself on every item. Trust the process.
Yeah, that's awesome advice. And look, for builders out there, my advice is you've got to put in the time. Like you can't you have to get a process. You have to be prepared to spend time during the design, going to design meetings, because I've learnt from my experience as a builder, if you're in a position where you're just getting sent plans to tender and you're pricing those up, and you could even be winning a job without actually even meeting a client. It's a recipe for disaster. You haven't been involved in any discussions. You don't know what the client's expectations are. You haven't been able to educate the client on exactly what we're talking about here today. And more than likely, you're ending up in lots of situations where things on site aren't what the client expected. There's variations, there's changes, whether you request them, the client requests them. And all of that comes back to no education. And if my advice is you spend the time, you put in the effort, and you do the education before you sign a building contract.
Absolutely.
And look, for homeowners out there, time and money spent prior to signing a building contract, the more money, spend better money, get better documentation, and collaborate, build a team, and work together so that you get the best outcome.
Excellent. Okay.
Awesome, guys. Well, look, if you enjoy what we talk about here at Level Up, make sure you like, you subscribe, tell your friends. And look, as always, if you have any questions or there's any topics that you want to know more about, if you want me to get Aaron back on again and we can talk about some more design type stuff, then send us a message and we're always here to help. Everything discussed during the Level Up podcast with me, Duayne Pearce, is based solely on my own personal experiences and those experiences of my guests. The information, opinions, and recommendations presented in this podcast are for general information only, and any reliance on the information provided in this podcast is done at your own risk. We recommend that you obtain your own professional advice in respect to the topics discussed during this podcast.